After funding my brother's business for years, I heard him tell a friend, "My sister just invests money, understands nothing." I withdrew everything. A month later, his business went bankrupt, man. Let me tell you about the most satisfying lesson I ever taught my brother. No cap. It all started 3 years ago when my brother Jake came to me with this amazing business opportunity he couldn't stop talking about. He wanted to open this high-end tech repair shop downtown, focusing on gaming rigs and custom builds. Now, I've always had a good head for money, studied finance at State, worked my way up at Goldman for years before going independent. I'm no Warren Buffett, but I've done pretty well for myself. Jake's always been the ideas guy in the family, full of dreams and schemes but light on follow-through. Still, this time he seemed serious. Had a business plan and everything on his MacBook, complete with those fancy charts that go up and to the right. The kind of presentation that screams, "I watched 3 YouTube videos on entrepreneurship. Sis, I just need some startup capital," he said over beers at this dive bar we like, O'Malley's. Dad won't help because of that thing with the food truck, but this is different. I've got actual customers lined up. Against my better judgment, I agreed to invest. Not just a little either, I'm talking serious cash. My accountant nearly had a heart attack when I told him. But hey, that's family, right? You bet on your people. The first year, things seemed okay. The shop opened, and Jake was hustling. I'd swing by with Starbucks sometimes, and the place was usually busy enough. He'd show me the books, which, looking back, were suspiciously neat, and I'd offer advice, here and there. Nothing major, just stuff about cash flow, marketing opportunities, supplier relationships, the boring stuff that actually keeps businesses alive. By year 2, Jake wanted to expand, add a second location across town, maybe start a line of custom peripherals with the shop's branding. More investment needed, of course. I hesitated, but then he brought out the big guns. Imagine Mom's face when she sees what we built together. Low blow, but effective. Mom passed 5 years ago, and she always wanted us to work together somehow, so I doubled down. Cashed out some Amazon stock I'd been sitting on since forever, wrote another big check. This time, I asked for more formal involvement. Nothing crazy, just a seat at the table for major decisions. Jake agreed easily. Too easily, as it turns out. Year 3 is when things got sketchy. The numbers weren't adding up. The second location was almost ready to open for 8 months straight. Every time I asked about specifics, Jake would get all technical about supply chain issues or contractor problems. Always some excuse that conveniently required more funding to solve. I started showing up unannounced, asking tougher questions. Jake would get irritated, telling me I was stressing him out and didn't understand the industry. Classic gaslighting, but I bought it because, I wanted to believe in him. Then came that night at Chevy's, this Tex-Mex place by his apartment. I was supposed to meet Jake to go over some new contract with a supplier. I got there early, grabbed a Corona, and was about to text him when I spotted him in a corner booth with some dude I'd never seen before. I was about to walk over when I heard my name, so I did what any rational adult would do. I pretended to be super interested in the neon Budweiser sign while eavesdropping. That's when I heard it. "My sister?" Jake laughed, taking a slug of his margarita. "She just invests money, understands nothing. I make all the decisions. It's better that way. She'd run this thing into the ground if I let her have any real input. Finance people, man, they think business is all spreadsheets." His friend nodded sympathetically, like they were sharing some universal truth about annoying sisters who've invested their life savings in your dream. I felt like someone had dumped ice water down my back. 3 years, nearly $700,000. Countless hours of advice and connections and support. And that's how he saw me? Just an ATM with a pulse? Update, y'all, I can't even describe how I felt in that moment. My hands were literally shaking as I walked out of that restaurant. I've never been so disrespected in my life, especially by someone I trusted completely. I'm sitting in my car right now trying to figure out what to do. Should I confront him tonight or wait until I can do something more impactful? Has anyone else had to teach a family member a lesson they'll never forget? I didn't sleep that night, just paced around my apartment, going through every conversation, every meeting, every time Jake had dismissed my input with a smile and a, "Sure sis, we'll look into that." It was never we, it was always him, using my money to play businessman while treating me like I was clueless. By morning, I had a plan. First call was to my lawyer, Trish. Second was to my accountant, Martin. Both were unsurprised. Turns out they'd been waiting for this call for about 2 years. "About time," Trish said, tapping away at her keyboard. "I've had the paperwork ready since he missed that first quarterly review." The beauty of my investment approach was that I'd structured everything very carefully. Jake had laughed at all the unnecessary legal mumbo-jumbo at the time, but had signed everything. Those documents gave me the right to withdraw my investment, with 24 hours notice under certain conditions. Conditions like, being deliberately excluded from business decisions contrary to our agreement. I moved fast. By noon, the wheels were in motion. By close of business, everything was executed. Every penny that could legally be reclaimed was on its way back to my accounts. Jake didn't notice for 2 days. 2 days. That's how closely he was monitoring the business finances. I was at the gym, absolutely crushing a spin class, when my phone lit up with his face. "What happened to the money?" he screamed, not even saying hello. The instructor gave me a look, and I just mouthed, "Brother drama," as I stepped out. "Good morning to you too, Jake," I said, weirdly calm, like scary calm. The kind of calm that only comes when you know you're completely right. "The accounts are empty. The transfer to the contractor bounced. What did you do?" I took a deep breath. The sister who understands nothing decided to invest in a more appreciative project. Silence. Then, what are you talking about? Chevys. Tuesday night, you and your friend. Ring any bells? More silence. Then the excuses started pouring out. He was just venting. It wasn't what it sounded like. He'd had a tough day. I was taking it out of context. Jake, I interrupted. It's done. The money's gone. You make all the decisions now, remember? So decide how to fix this. What followed was a month of absolute chaos. Jake called daily, cycling through anger, pleading, threats, and sob stories. He brought in our cousins, our aunt, even my godmother to try to convince me to reinvest. I stood firm. You've got plenty of business experience now, I told him during one particularly dramatic phone call. 3 years of making all the decisions. Surely you can figure this out. Meanwhile, I was taking meetings with actual promising startups, people who valued my input as much as my money. It felt good, being respected for my brain instead of just my bank account. Update. So many of you have asked for more details about what happened next and whether I felt guilty watching my brother struggle. The truth? I felt terrible for about a day. Then I remembered all the times he'd dismissed my concerns about his spending or how he'd roll his eyes when I suggested better inventory management. Now I'm watching his social media meltdown as he blames everyone but himself. The business is on life support, and yesterday he had the nerve to text me. This is your fault too. Hope you're happy. Am I wrong for feeling like this is exactly the lesson he needed? The inevitable happened right on schedule. 1 month after I pulled my funding, Jake's business officially filed for bankruptcy. Turns out he'd been operating on razor-thin margins for over a year, using my investments to cover massive overspending and some questionable personal purchases. That business Tesla, not actually essential equipment. I found out about the bankruptcy from our cousin Mia, not from Jake himself. She called me while I was grabbing a Nike duffel bag from my car after a workout. Did you see Instagram? Jake's having a full meltdown, she said, equal parts concerned and entertained. Something about betrayal and the death of his dreams. I checked, and sure enough, there was a 10-slide story about how family is supposed to have your back and how true entrepreneurs face obstacles. Not a word about responsibility or mistakes. Classic Jake. He showed up at my door 3 days later, unshaven, wearing the same Northwestern hoodie he's had since college, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. Can we talk? He asked, holding a peace offering of my favorite Dunkin' cold brew. I let him in, more curious than angry at this point. He started with apologies. So many apologies. He was sorry for what he said, sorry for how he'd treated me, sorry for wasting my money. It seemed sincere, but with Jake, it's hard to tell where the performance ends and the real feeling begins. I really messed up, he said finally, staring into his coffee. The business is gone. The equipment's being liquidated next week. I've got nothing. I could have said many things, could have twisted the knife. Instead, I just looked at him and said, amazing how someone who makes all the decisions couldn't survive a month without my money. Harsh? Maybe. But sometimes the truth needs to be harsh to get through. Jake winced. I deserve that. But I need help, sis. I can't even make rent this month. This was the crossroads, the moment where I decided what kind of sister, what kind of person I wanted to be. I didn't give him money. That would have undone the lesson. Instead, I gave him something more valuable. I'm not bailing you out financially, I told him. But I've got connections. If you're willing to start at the bottom and actually listen, this time I can make some calls. Update. This post absolutely blew up, way more than I expected. To answer the most common question, yes, I did help my brother find a job, but not in the way he expected. Many of you have suggested I was too soft, that I should have let him figure it out entirely on his own. Others think I should have given him another chance with the business. The truth is somewhere in between. The last 6 months have been a journey for both of us. He's learning humility, and I'm learning where to draw boundaries. The biggest surprise? Our relationship is actually better now than it was when I was funding his dreams. Sometimes losing everything is the wake-up call some people desperately need. Thanks for all your support and advice. Even the harsh stuff made me think. 2 months later, Jake was working as an assistant manager at Micro Center. Not glamorous, but steady work in the field he supposedly loved. His boss was a friend of a friend, a no-nonsense woman who reported to me regularly about his performance. The deal was simple. Work hard for a year, learn the business from the ground up, and maybe, we could talk about a new venture together in the future. That was 8 months ago. Since then, I've successfully invested in 3 other startups, all doing well. One's an app that helps people find mental health resources, another's a sustainable clothing brand, and the third is a food delivery service specializing in healthy options for seniors, all run by people who value my input as much as my money. Jake's doing okay too. Better than okay, actually. After the initial ego bruising, he threw himself into learning the retail side of tech. His boss says he's one of their top sellers now with a real knack for explaining complex stuff to regular people. He's saving money, living within his means for maybe the first time ever. We meet for lunch every couple weeks. It was awkward at first, but we're finding our way back to being family without the complicated business relationship. Last week, he actually asked for my advice about personal investing. Progress. Sometimes at those lunches, I catch him looking at me differently. With respect, maybe even a little awe. Not because I'm some financial genius, but because I had the spine to stand up for myself when it mattered. The other day at Chipotle, he said something that stuck with me. You know what? The worst part was, When you pulled the money, I realized I'd been making terrible decisions all along. Everything you suggested, the inventory system, the marketing plan, the supplier negotiations, it all would have saved us. I was too proud to admit you knew what you were talking about. For real, that moment was worth more than any money I lost in his failed business. So that's my story. Sometimes the people closest to you won't value what you bring to the table until you take it away. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to let them face the consequences of their actions. Jake's not a startup founder anymore, but he might actually be becoming a better businessman, and definitely a better brother. As for me, I've learned that investing isn't just about money. It's about making sure your time, knowledge, and support are going to people who actually appreciate them. And that, friends, is the most valuable lesson of all.